Welcome, beautiful Sigma ladies. She's not confused, she just doesn't relate to your version of reality. Most people assume Sigma females are mysterious, aloof, maybe even a little arrogant. But what if the truth is more unsettling? What if she's not distant? She's just operating on a completely different frequency. Let's get something straight. Sigma females aren't trying to be misunderstood. They just genuinely don't comprehend the bizarre things society worships. From fake friendships to over-explaining yourself like it's a courtroom trial, there are some things that simply make zero sense to her. Here's a wild fact to chew on. According to psychological studies on social archetypes, less than 1% of women identify with the Sigma persona. And those who do tend to reject group dynamics altogether. Translation? They don't follow the script. They flip it, question it, and sometimes burn it entirely. And while most people nod, smile, and blend in, the Sigma female is sitting there like, wait, you guys do that on purpose? Get ready, because what you're about to hear isn't just eye-opening, it's mind-bending. These are 12 things Sigma females simply can't wrap their heads around. Not because they're difficult, but because they're drenched in nonsense. And if you're not ready for brutal honesty with a side of dry sarcasm, you may want to buckle up. Let's dive in. Number 1. Why people apologize for winning. Why do people apologize for being brilliant? That's something a Sigma female will never understand. She walks into a room, owns her space, speaks her mind, and excels without blinking. Not because she's trying to prove anything, but because that's just who she is. And then she watches others shrink themselves, hide their talent, or downplay their success to avoid making others feel less than. It's baffling. To her, dimming your light to comfort someone else isn't kindness. It's self-abandonment. Sigma females don't apologize for their wins. They don't sugarcoat their drive. They don't soften their edge just to seem humble. That performative humility some people put on, that nervous laugh after complimenting themselves, that whole, oh, it's nothing really when they just moved mountains. Yeah, she doesn't do that. She celebrates progress with quiet confidence and can't wrap her head around why others treat their own success like it's something to tiptoe around. She notices how society trains women especially to be palatable. Don't be too loud, too smart, too confident. Sigma females hear that and think, why would I ever be less than what I am to make mediocre people comfortable? They simply don't comprehend that logic. If you've earned it, you've earned it. If you shine, shine. Anyone who's threatened by that can step aside. What confuses her most is how this fake modesty actually becomes a form of social survival. People will downplay their own ideas just to avoid tension. They'll act unsure so others don't feel insecure. To the Sigma female, that's spiritual dishonesty. You're lying to the world and to yourself. For what? Approval? She doesn't relate at all. Her mindset is simple. Be excellent, own it, don't explain it. And if someone's offended by her presence, it's probably because they were relying on her silence to feel superior. That's not her problem, that's theirs. Number 2, how people stay loyal to titles instead of truth. To a Sigma female, titles mean absolutely nothing if they aren't backed by integrity. You could be her lifelong friend, her blood relative, her boss at work. None of that buys you immunity. She doesn't play by the unspoken social rulebook that says, respect the title no matter the behavior. If someone's actions are harmful, manipulative, or fake, the Sigma female won't stick around out of obligation. She doesn't do blind loyalty, she does truth. What baffles her is how so many people will let themselves be mistreated simply because of a label. They'll let their so-called best friend gaslight them, let a toxic parent control their life, or let a manager degrade them. All because that's their role. It's like people are more committed to maintaining the illusion of loyalty than actually protecting their peace. That makes no sense to her. She values respect over rank, energy over history, and truth over sentimentality. She's not cold, she's clear. If someone crosses a line repeatedly, no title in the world is going to save that relationship. She'll walk away from a toxic sister just as fast as she would from a toxic stranger. Not because she's heartless, but because her self-respect is non-negotiable. She doesn't understand people who say things like, but she's your mother, or he's your boss, you have to respect him. No, she doesn't. Respect is earned. Position doesn't equal permission to mistreat others. In her mind, being related to someone or tied to them professionally doesn't give them a free pass to be emotionally reckless. And here's what really flips the script. While others are out here trying to protect roles and labels, she's protecting her reality. If that means disappointing people by setting boundaries, so be it. She'd rather lose a title than lose herself. So when others stay loyal to dysfunction just because it comes dressed as family or tradition, the Sigma female just quietly exits, confused but not conflicted, because to her, truth always outranks title, every single time. Number 3. Why people call brutal honesty rude. To the Sigma female, brutal honesty isn't rude, it's respectful. If she tells you the truth, especially when it's uncomfortable, it means she values you enough not to lie to your face. She doesn't twist her words into soft little cushions so they land easier. She just gives it to you straight. No filters, no fluff, no performance. And yet, time and time again, she sees people recoil, call her cold, harsh, or too much, all because she doesn't dress her truth in socially acceptable lies. What confuses her is this bizarre social habit of equating dishonesty with kindness. People will lie to their friends to protect their feelings, stay silent to avoid awkward moments, and praise mediocrity so no one feels left out. Meanwhile, she'll say, "You're better than this," or "That idea won't work," or "You're lying to yourself," and suddenly she's the villain in the room. Not because she's wrong, but because she dared to say what others were thinking. She finds it insane that people prefer polished lies over raw truth, that someone being fake but polite is more socially acceptable than someone being real but blunt. To her, that's emotional fraud. If you can't handle honesty, are you really ready for growth, or are you just addicted to comfort? She doesn't believe in lying to people she respects. That's the whole point. She'll be honest even if it costs her popularity, friendships, or approval. And no, she doesn't enjoy confrontation. But she'll never avoid truth just to protect someone's fragile ego. That feels more insulting than helpful. The funny part? Most people actually crave truth deep down. They just don't want it without sugar on top. But the Sigma female isn't in the business of selling sugar. She deals in clarity. And if that clarity stings a little, good. Growth usually does. So when people call her rude for saying what needs to be said, she doesn't take it personally. She just realizes they weren't ready for her, and she's completely fine with that. Number 4. Why everyone is obsessed with being liked. The Sigma female watches the world obsess over being liked, and honestly, she doesn't get it. People bending over backwards for approval, editing themselves in real time, measuring their worth by who claps the loudest. It all feels bizarre to her. She's not in the business of collecting fans. She's not performing. She's not molding herself into what people want. She's building a life that's real, raw, and entirely her own, whether people like it or not. The truth is, she doesn't trust approval that comes too easily. If you like everyone and everything, your opinion doesn't mean much to her. She'd rather be respected than liked, and if given the choice, she'll take being misunderstood over being fake any day. In fact, there's something oddly peaceful to her about being misread. When people don't get her, they leave her alone, and that's often when she does her best work. What confuses her is how far people are willing to go just to avoid being disliked. They'll lie, people please, stay silent when they should speak, or agree with things they don't believe in just to stay in good standing. She finds it exhausting to watch, and even more exhausting to imagine doing it. To her, if you're constantly managing people's perceptions, you're not living, you're auditioning. She sees right through the performance, the curated personalities, the watered-down opinions, the desperate attempts to be relatable. It's not confidence, it's camouflage. And she's not interested in that life. She says what she means, stands where she stands, doesn't soften herself to fit, not because she's trying to rebel, but because it's too draining to be anything but real. The irony? The people chasing approval rarely find it, but the Sigma female, who couldn't care less about being liked, often ends up deeply respected, even if it comes with a heavy dose of misunderstanding. And she's okay with that. Approval fades, authenticity doesn't. Number 5. Why people stay in dead relationships out of guilt. To a Sigma female, staying in a dead relationship out of guilt is like willingly sitting in a cage with the door wide open. She doesn't understand how people confuse loyalty with self-destruction. Once the connection dies, once the respect is gone, once it becomes emotional labor instead of love, she checks out. Quietly, firmly, and without apology. Because to her, staying just because you should is the same as slowly burying yourself while still breathing. She watches people cling to relationships out of duty, nostalgia, or the fear of being seen as the bad one. They say things like, "But we've been together for years," or "They need me," or "I can't just walk away." And the Sigma female can't help but think, but you already walked away from yourself. She doesn't do emotional hostage situations, not as the hostage and not as the captor. If the relationship only survives on guilt, obligation, or routine, then it's not love. It's debt. And she doesn't trade her peace for emotional IOUs. What she finds truly strange is how normalized this is. People will literally live in emotional graveyards, avoiding the truth, walking on eggshells, pretending they're working on it, when deep down, both sides know it's over. They'll burn their own joy to keep a corpse warm. That level of emotional self-abandonment doesn't make sense to her. She believes in love, but not love that demands the death of her identity. Not love that manipulates through guilt. Not love that feels like a life sentence. If it stops being real, she doesn't ask for permission to leave. She just goes. Not because she doesn't care, but because she cares about herself, too. She knows that guilt is a horrible reason to stay, and pity is an even worse one. So when people say, "I don't want to hurt them," she hears, "I'm willing to hurt myself instead." That's not noble, that's tragic. And she refuses to live that way. Number 6. Why people fear being alone more than being miserable. The Sigma female finds it completely baffling that so many people would rather stay miserable in chaos than sit quietly in their own company. She watches people tolerate toxic relationships, soul-draining friendships, and noisy, shallow social circles, all because they're terrified of being alone. And to her, that fear is irrational. She doesn't just tolerate solitude, she craves it. That's where she thinks clearly, breathes deeply, and remembers who she is. She sees how people fill every silence with distraction. Constant texts, meaningless meetups, endless scrolling, background noise, forced conversations, anything to avoid being alone with their own thoughts. But she doesn't get it. Why run from yourself? Why escape into chaos just to avoid confronting your own reflection? For her, being alone isn't emptiness, it's clarity, it's power, it's peace. She's never needed a crowd to feel valid or a partner to feel whole. In fact, she often finds people more exhausting than energizing. She doesn't associate loneliness with isolation. She associates it with losing herself in places she doesn't belong. What confuses her most is when people act like solitude is punishment. They say things like, "I don't want to die alone," or "What if no one wants me?" As if being single or independent is some kind of failure. But in her mind, being miserable just to avoid being alone is the real tragedy. Choosing noise over peace isn't bravery. It's fear in disguise. She knows that solitude forces truth to the surface. That's why people avoid it. Alone, there are no distractions. Just your choices, your regrets, your identity. But that's exactly why she values it. Solitude reveals what noise hides. So when she sees people choosing miserable company over meaningful solitude, she doesn't judge. She just can't relate. That kind of fear doesn't live in her. She's not afraid of being alone. She's afraid of living a life where she can't hear herself think. And that's a kind of misery she'll never accept. Number 7. How people accept fake peace to avoid real conflict. The Sigma female has zero patience for fake peace. That tense smile, the forced small talk, the unspoken resentment bubbling under polite conversations, it all makes her skin crawl. She can't stand the performance people put on just to keep the peace, because to her, it's not peace at all. It's quiet dysfunction. It's a slow, silent war nobody wants to admit is happening. She watches how people bite their tongues, suppress their feelings, and avoid confrontation like it's a disease. They pretend everything's okay, while slowly eroding from the inside. They let issues rot because they're afraid of the temporary discomfort that comes with addressing them. But to the Sigma female, that's emotional self-destruction. She doesn't get why anyone would choose that. She believes in clearing the air, not thickening the fog. If something feels off, she'll call it out. If there's tension, she won't pretend it's just her imagination. She's not interested in being liked at the expense of being real. That fake, everything's fine energy drains her, and she can feel it from a mile away. What really confuses her is how often people convince themselves they're keeping things calm, when in reality they're just avoiding truth. That's not calm, that's compliance. It's a fragile illusion that only works until the next explosion. She doesn't understand how people can live like that, always walking on eggshells, terrified to rock the boat, even if the boat is already sinking. She doesn't seek out drama, but she's not allergic to it either. If conflict is necessary to get to clarity, she'll face it head on, not to be combative, but to be free. Because pretending everything's okay when it's clearly not? That feels like living in a padded cell with nice curtains. Quiet, yes, but suffocating. So when people applaud themselves for avoiding conflict, she doesn't admire them. She pities them. Avoiding the storm doesn't make you peaceful. Facing it makes you powerful. And she'd rather be uncomfortable in truth than comfortable in a lie, every time. Number 8. Why people constantly explain themselves. To the Sigma female, constantly explaining yourself feels like begging for permission to be who you already are, and she's not in the business of begging. She sees people waste so much energy trying to justify their thoughts, their choices, even their boundaries, just to satisfy others who have already decided not to understand them. It's exhausting to watch, and to her, completely pointless. She doesn't operate from a need to be understood. She operates from alignment. If her actions make sense to her, if her soul is at peace, that's enough. She's not going to sit there and perform emotional gymnastics trying to convince someone that her life makes sense. Especially not to people who are more interested in judging than listening. What really baffles her is how normalized this habit has become. People over-explain why they didn't answer a text right away, why they said no, why they changed careers, why they left someone, why they chose themselves. It's like they're terrified of being seen as rude or selfish, as if existing unapologetically needs a disclaimer. The Sigma female just doesn't relate. She understands that not everyone will get her, and she's perfectly okay with that. Her identity isn't up for debate. She's not a politician trying to win votes. She's not interested in pleasing the crowd. If someone misunderstands her and refuses to look deeper, that's their ceiling, not her responsibility. She knows that some people don't actually want clarity. They want control. They ask for explanations as a way to question her choices or guilt trip her into doing what they want. She spots it instantly, and rather than engage, she just disengages. No drama, no long speech, just a quiet exit. Because at the end of the day, she's not here to explain. She's here to evolve. And evolution doesn't need permission, it just needs space. Number 9. Why people pretend to be dumber than they are. The Sigma female finds it deeply unsettling how often intelligent people pretend to be less than they are just to fit in. She sees it all the time. Sharp minds dumbing down their thoughts, toning down their vocabulary, laughing at things they don't find funny, hiding their insights just to avoid making others feel uncomfortable. To her, that's not humility, it's self-betrayal. She doesn't understand how being relatable became more important than being real. Since when did playing small become the strategy for acceptance? It baffles her that people would choose to dim their brilliance just so others don't feel threatened. That's like owning a luxury car and pretending it's a bicycle just so no one gets jealous. The Sigma female refuses to shrink herself for social ease. If her intelligence makes someone insecure, that's not her burden to carry. She's not arrogant about it. She just doesn't believe in apologizing for how her mind works. And what's even more disturbing to her is how society often rewards that shrinking. We label brilliance as too much, as intimidating, as try hard. And the people who play dumb, they're often praised for being cool, chill, or easy to be around. That irony doesn't sit right with her. She's not interested in playing down her potential to win favor. She levels up. and expects people around her to do the same or get left behind. Not out of cruelty, but because she simply can't survive in environments where intelligence is seen as a threat instead of a gift. She watches people hide their ideas in meetings, pretend not to know the answer, laugh off their own insights, and it makes her silently furious. Not at them, but at the twisted cultural conditioning that taught them they had to do that to be accepted. The Sigma female doesn't play that game. She doesn't mask her mind. She doesn't pretend to be less capable. She's not trying to be more likable. She's trying to be more herself. And that's a frequency very few people are comfortable with. But she doesn't care. She'd rather be misunderstood in truth than praised in disguise. Number 10. Why people fake happiness just to avoid making changes. To the Sigma female, faking happiness is one of the most painful forms of self-deception. She sees it everywhere. People plastering on smiles, posting curated joy on social media, giving glowing updates about their lives, while privately they're drowning in dissatisfaction, fear, and emotional fatigue. She's not confused by their unhappiness. She's confused by their refusal to face it. The performance of joy to her isn't admirable. It's tragic. She doesn't understand how people can live in a constant state of pretending, waking up dreading their lives but still putting on a show, staying in the wrong relationship, working the wrong job, living in the wrong place. But instead of confronting those truths, they slap a filter on their misery and call it gratitude. They say things like, "It's not that bad," or "I should be thankful," not because they believe it, but because it's easier than making a hard change. That mindset? Alien to her. The Sigma female doesn't pretend she's fine when she's not. If something feels wrong, she'll confront it. If she's unhappy, she won't mask it. She'll dissect it. She believes pain has a purpose. It shows you what needs to be fixed, faced, or left behind. So when she sees people ignoring that signal and faking happiness just to maintain the illusion of stability, it feels like watching someone slowly disappear behind a smile that doesn't belong to them. What confuses her most is how people prioritize appearance over alignment. They'll risk emotional numbness just to avoid disappointing others or disrupting the comfort of familiarity. They'll keep up the charade because change is scary, but staying miserable somehow isn't. She doesn't get it. If your soul is restless, why are you still sitting still? She knows real happiness can't be faked, and it certainly can't be forced. It's not a performance. It's a byproduct of living in truth. So she'd rather feel the full weight of her emotions than pretend they don't exist. She respects her inner world too much to lie about it. To the Sigma female, faking joy is more exhausting than doing the hard work to build a life that actually feels good. She doesn't smile for the camera. She smiles when her soul feels seen. Number 11. Why people treat self-sacrifice as a virtue. To the Sigma female, the idea that self-sacrifice is some kind of moral badge of honor is completely backward. Society loves to glorify people, especially women, who give up everything for others, their time, energy, dreams, sanity. But to her, constantly putting yourself last isn't noble. It's either a cry for validation or a sign that you've been brainwashed into thinking your needs don't matter. Neither is something to aspire to. She sees how people wear their exhaustion like a medal, how they say yes to everything, stay in roles that drain them, and pride themselves on being selfless, even as their identity fades into the background. And everyone applauds them for it. They're seen as good, kind, dependable. But the Sigma female doesn't see strength in that. She sees self-erasure, a slow disappearance of self in the name of approval or peace. What she finds especially disturbing is how this mindset is deeply gendered. Women in particular are taught to make themselves small, quiet, endlessly giving. They're told that loving others means emptying themselves. But to the Sigma female, that's emotional suicide dressed up as virtue. You can't pour into others from a cup that's constantly being drained, and doing so doesn't make you strong, it makes you hollow. She also sees through the darker side of martyrdom, the manipulation hidden behind the "I did everything for you" narrative. Some people weaponize their self-sacrifice as emotional leverage. They suffer loudly, visibly, constantly, not for love, but for power. and she doesn't buy it. Guilt isn't a love language. She won't be emotionally blackmailed by someone who chose to abandon themselves and now expects everyone else to feel indebted. The Sigma female believes in showing up for others, but not at the cost of her soul. She sets limits, protects her energy, and says no without guilt. Not because she doesn't care, but because she refuses to perform the slow, silent death of martyrdom that so many are praised for. To her, real strength is knowing your worth and refusing to bury it under obligation. She'd rather disappoint others than disappear into them, and if that makes her selfish in some people's eyes, so be it. At least she's still herself. Number 12. Why people fear evolving beyond their circle. The Sigma female has never feared outgrowing people. In fact, she expects it. Growth is part of her DNA. She's always evolving, always shedding old skins, always becoming more of who she's meant to be. So when she sees others freeze the moment they start to rise above their current circle, she doesn't understand. Why stall your evolution just to stay relatable to people who no longer match your direction? She sees it happen all the time. Someone starts changing their mindset, improving their habits, chasing something bigger, and suddenly they get scared. Not of failing, but of outshining. They worry their friends will say, "You've changed," like that's a bad thing. They fear becoming the outsider in their own group. So instead of leveling up, they dial it back. They dull their ambition. They water down their energy, all for the comfort of staying the same in a circle that stopped growing years ago. To the Sigma female, that's a form of quiet self-sabotage. She doesn't believe that true connection should require stagnation. If someone truly values you, they won't resent your growth. They'll rise with you, or at the very least cheer from the sidelines. But if your evolution threatens them, exposes their own resistance, or makes them uncomfortable, then that connection was conditional all along. And she's not afraid to leave it behind. What really confuses her is how loyalty gets twisted into limitation. People feel guilty for outgrowing their friends, families, or partners, like it's a betrayal. But to her, staying small just to keep everyone comfortable is the real betrayal, to yourself. Growth is not a personal attack, it's a personal necessity. The Sigma female doesn't slow down her transformation just to keep others from feeling left behind. She's not arrogant about it, but she's not apologetic either. She moves forward with quiet strength, even if that means walking alone for a while. Because to her, comfort zones are graveyards. And evolution isn't betrayal, it's the point of being alive. The Sigma female isn't confused. She's simply living in a world that speaks a language she refuses to learn. While others chase approval, fake peace, shrink themselves, and cling to dead connections, she moves with clarity, precision, and a fierce loyalty to her own truth. She doesn't need to be understood, applauded, or accepted. And that's exactly what makes her so magnetic and so misunderstood. She doesn't fear walking alone because she knows solitude sharpens the soul. She doesn't fear being disliked because her worth isn't up for public vote. And she definitely doesn't fear outgrowing people, environments, or old versions of herself. Because for the Sigma female, growth isn't optional, it's sacred. While the world scrambles for comfort, she seeks evolution. While others pretend to be happy, she rebuilds her life until happiness is real. And while most people are busy performing, she's out there becoming. So if you've ever felt like you see through things most people don't, if you've ever chosen truth over approval, solitude over noise, or growth over loyalty to the past, then maybe, just maybe, you're not the strange one after all. Maybe you're just free. If you found value in this, don't just scroll away. Show some love. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss raw, unfiltered content like this. Smash the like button if even one point made you pause and think. And drop a comment below. Let's hear your truth. Which point hit the hardest? Which one felt uncomfortably accurate? And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who's playing small, stuck in a fake piece, or afraid of their own evolution, share this video with them. Because realness deserves to be heard. And truth, it spreads faster when we don't keep it to ourselves.